Once upon a time, in a cozy little village surrounded by golden fields and tall mountains, lived a cheerful boy named Leo. He had bright eyes that shone like morning stars and a heart full of curiosity. Every day, Leo dreamed of exploring the world beyond his village, a world filled with magic, colors, and mysteries waiting to be discovered. One breezy morning, while chasing a colorful butterfly near the forest, Leo saw something glittering under a tree. It was a small crystal shaped like a snowflake. As soon as he touched it, a warm wind swirled around him, and the ground beneath his feet began to sparkle. Suddenly, a glowing path appeared, leading deep into the forest. Without thinking twice, Leo followed it, his heart racing with excitement. At the end of the glowing path stood a giant golden door covered in leaves, snowflakes, flowers, and sunlight. Above the door, shining letters read, "The Kingdom of the Four Seasons." The door opened by itself, and Leo stepped into a world unlike anything he had ever seen. To his left stretched fields of blooming flowers, the spring land. To his right were trees of red and gold, the autumn realm. Far ahead shimmered the icy mountains of Winter Valley, and behind them glowed the warm skies of Summer Island. But the sky above this land was not bright and cheerful, half of it was covered in gray clouds. Something was wrong. The seasons were no longer in harmony. A soft voice echoed in the air, "Welcome, Leo. The kingdom is in danger. The four seasons have lost their magic. You are the chosen one to bring them back." Leo didn't see anyone, but he felt the voice came from the crystal he still held. He nodded bravely and began his journey. Leo first walked toward the land of spring. The air smelled of fresh rain and blooming flowers. But when he arrived, the once beautiful gardens were dry and gray. Butterflies couldn't fly, and rivers had stopped flowing. In the middle of a quiet meadow stood the spring tree, its branches drooping sadly. From its hollow trunk came a gentle light. Leo touched it, and a memory burst before his eyes, a scene of a joyful fairy named Flora, dancing and spreading flower petals. But now she was gone. Then Leo noticed tiny glowing seeds on the ground. He picked one up, and it shone brighter in his hand. "Maybe if I find where these belong, the magic will return," he thought. He followed a trail of these seeds through meadows, hills, and a sparkling pond until he reached a giant nest made of vines. Inside it slept a giant bird made of petals, the blossom bird, guardian of spring. The bird's wings were dull and colorless. Leo gently placed the glowing seed near its heart. Suddenly, the seed burst into light. The bird opened its eyes, shook its wings, and thousands of petals flew into the air. Colors returned, rivers began to sing, and the flowers danced again. The spring tree whispered, "Thank you, Leo. You have awakened the season of bloom." Next, Leo crossed a shining bridge made of sunlight to reach the island of summer. But when he arrived, the skies were dark, and the sea was silent. The warm beaches had turned cold, and the sun was hidden behind heavy clouds. On the highest cliff stood a tower made of golden sand. At its top burned a weak flame, the heart of summer. Leo climbed the tower, the sand shifting under his feet. When he reached the top, he saw that the flame was guarded by a sleeping fire lion. Suddenly, the crystal in Leo's pocket began to glow. It whispered, "The flame is dying because the sun jewel was stolen." Leo looked around and saw footprints leading to the edge of the cliff. He followed them down to a cave filled with glittering shells and glowing fish. There, in the dark, a mischievous sea spirit was playing with the golden sun jewel. Leo reached out his hand and said softly, "The world needs your light." The sea spirit looked at him curiously and placed the jewel in his hand. As soon as Leo put it back into the heart of summer, the fire lion roared. Flames burst into the sky, and sunlight poured down across the island. Waves sparkled, palm trees swayed, and the ocean sang once again. "Summer thanks you, brave one," the wind whispered. Leo then entered a forest filled with golden leaves. The air smelled of apples and cinnamon. But the realm of autumn was silent. The trees were frozen mid-fall, their leaves hanging in the air as if time had stopped. At the center of the forest stood a massive clock made of wood and vines, the clock of seasons. Its hands were still. Leo climbed the gears and saw that one was missing, the amber gear of time. He searched through the forest until he found a shimmering fox watching him from behind a pumpkin patch. The fox's eyes glowed like tiny stars. It ran off, and Leo followed, laughing as he jumped over mushrooms and fallen logs. Finally, the fox stopped near a small pond and dropped the glowing amber gear at his feet. Leo smiled and placed it back into the clock. The moment he did, the forest began to move again. Leaves fell gently, the sky glowed orange, and the scent of roasted chestnuts filled the air. The fox wagged its tail and vanished into the woods. The trees whispered, "The balance returns," only one place remained, the Valley of Winter. The moment Leo stepped in, snowflakes swirled around him. The valley was silent and cold. Ice covered everything, even the stars in the sky seemed frozen. In the middle stood the Crystal Castle, home of the Winter Queen. But its gates were locked in ice. Leo touched the ice with his hand, and his crystal shone once again. Inside the castle, he found a grand hall filled with frozen statues, deer, owls, and even people, all turned to ice. On the throne sat the Winter Queen herself, frozen mid-smile. At her feet lay a broken crown of frost. Leo carefully picked up the pieces and placed them together. His crystal floated above them, glowing brighter than ever before. The light spread through the hall, melting the ice and awakening the queen. She opened her eyes and smiled warmly. "You have done what no one else could. The seasons are whole again." Snowflakes turned to diamonds in the air. The entire kingdom shone with light, spring, summer, autumn, and winter dancing together in perfect harmony. Leo stood in the center of it all, surrounded by beauty and peace. The crystal in his hand sparkled one last time and whispered, "Thank you, Leo. You have restored balance. But remember, true magic lives inside the heart that dares to dream." A bright wind lifted him off the ground, spinning him through colors and music until he landed softly, back under the same tree where he had found the crystal. The butterfly he had chased earlier landed on his hand. The sun was rising, painting the sky with the same colors he had seen in the Kingdom of the Four Seasons. Leo smiled. Maybe it had all been a dream. Or maybe, just maybe, the magic of the seasons would live in him forever. And from that day on, every time the wind blew, every time a new flower bloomed, or the first snowflake touched the ground, Leo remembered his adventure and whispered to the wind, "Thank you, my magical friends."